Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 32 of Off the Track. Welcome back to another Wednesday. I'm your host, Tanner Holmes, and usually I would say to my left or to my right, I have my best buddy, but actually in today's show, we're doing it a little bit different, virtually and over the computer. So on the line, I also have my co-host, Bennett. Bennett, how you doing today?
Pretty good. This feels a little bit weird, being 2.5 hours apart shooting this. And I know we always talked about this idea and now bringing it to life. I think it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but I think, it's going to allow us to be able to post more content, more podcasts. So, yeah, I'm liking it so far.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely going to be different, but we're going to adjust to it. Also joining us as he joined us in the last two episodes, my driver over the weekend, the owner of Fast Four Media, sprint car or ex-sprint car driver, and just overall a good guy, Kyler Shaw. Kyler, I guess we should actually start off by asking how you feeling after, running the Outlaw Kart this weekend, which is mainly what we're going to be diving into in the show.
I'm great today. I've had a couple days to decompress over the weekend or from the weekend, and man, I really want to get back behind the wheel now. I was kind of bummed out after the wreck, but all the support that everybody's given and everybody giving me positive words, I really want to run again now.
So in the last episode, we talked a lot about what everything was going to look like. We kind of tried to hype it all up, and at the same time, we were all kind of feeling like different emotions and just seeing what it was going to go. I remember specifically saying like I thought Kyler was going to do better than he expected, and then once it was time to practice on Friday, obviously the nerves for not necessarily me. I didn't really feel nervous, but I think the nerves did start to kick in a little bit, and everything started to feel real. Kyler, do you want to take us through what the practice night looked like? Because we got to run, I mean, heck, we got to run a ton of laps, and I felt like that was incredibly valuable for just setting you up for having a shot to have a good Saturday.
100%. It's kind of crazy looking back now that it's all done and over with. When I was driving to the track, I was so nervous heading to the practice day and then obviously for the race. And then, we kind of got some good laps and then had a lot of confidence going into Saturday. So, um, the practice on Friday was definitely very crucial to help out for Saturday. Um, we really found some speed there at the end, and honestly, like looking back on it now, it was like, why was I even nervous? I mean, once I went out there for the heat races and stuff, we had speed straight out the gate, and a lot of those nerves were just overthinking beforehand. But considering that, we really did great, honestly.
I was going to say, quick question for you. I know when I ran Tanner's car in Red Bluff, I was more nervous. Like, I don't know. Have you ever ran for someone else's equipment? I was very nervous. Like, this isn't my stuff, but I want to try to go out there and it's Red Bluff. So you're almost guaranteed to bump Nerf bars with someone. So I was nervous. Like, it's my best friend. I don't want to wreck his stuff. Did you feel that at all up in Roseburg?
Oh, definitely. Especially on such a small and fast track. That was actually probably, as far as I can recall, that have had to been the first time I ever drove for somebody else, other than just practice days. So there was a lot at stake. Obviously, I don't want to wreck anybody's car, especially one of my buddies. So that was unfortunate. But yeah, there was a lot of nerves there. Just on a track that small and that fast, it was kind of inevitable to tear something up if we weren't in the prime position, which would have been the front row. So definitely a lot of nerves of trying to keep the car clean, and honestly that probably kind of impacted my performance because I was too worried about things that I shouldn't have been worrying about as a driver. So uh, yeah, it was definitely a new experience to drive somebody else's car. It's not your own equipment. You don't want to destroy it.
To kind of chime in with that, I mean, I can agree. I've driven for a handful of people, and like I feel no matter if you're like friends with the person or not, like I feel like being if like obviously all of our connections in a way, I guess it could make it worse, but it could make it better. One of the things I wanted to like really touch on from the Friday night practice, which I thought was like a unique moment. Obviously, I think we got to run 4 or 5 sessions, and the first session, like I was watching in a perspective that I'd never really had before, was watching my own car really go around the track. Like I'd seen it a couple of times, but not actually like my car. And seeing Shaw, like first session, I'm like, all right, man, looked really good, good consistent laps. Like that was a great start. Uh, Shaw was you were Kyler, you were still adjusting heavily to the right foot with the 4-stroke. And talk about, you'd ran a CR 500 a couple of times. You ran on the backyard track, but I think actually, like, now in the best piece of equipment that I've had is my own stuff. You got to run. Talk about how easy it was to wheelie and lift the front end off the ground and the adjustment you had to make with the 4-stroke compared to maybe what a CR 500 would have felt like.
Oh, that 4-stroke really wants to wheelie. I'm sure some people saw that on that backyard track video. I mean, honestly, I wasn't really doing anything out of the ordinary there for that to happen. So, yeah, the 4-stroke is that 4-stroke was really touchy with the front end there on practice day, and it's really not that hard to get the front wheels up, as you said. So, I had to adapt to that. The CR 500s, I feel like, are a little more consistent on the speed band side of things, so they don't pick the front end up as much, or at least the cars I've driven. So the first session, I went out there and it wheelied toward the wall, and I was like, "Oh boy, we got to slow her down a little bit. This is definitely different." So yeah, I had to make some adjustments there, and even with the pedal, we had to make a couple adjustments there because with that 4-stroke, the 500s, I feel like they have more throw in the pedal to where you can roll in and out of the throttle a little easier, whereas your 4-stroke, like, and we talked about this, I felt like I was half throttle, which potentially was full throttle, because there's not much play in the pedal. So if I barely tap it, I feel like I'm almost probably quarter throttle rather than, an eighth of the way down on the pedal.
That's interesting that you mentioned that there. I was curious, the 4-strokes, I feel like kind of the reputation for being best on the bottom. And, Roseburg, unfortunately, doesn't have too much of a difference between top and bottom. The bottom does rip when you can't get it going. But did you ever feel a difference, like off the bottom, it just absolutely pulls versus, maybe the middle to top?
Honestly, no matter where on the track I was, it definitely had a lot of drive. Um, in the video, I did state I was more comfortable on the top because of the banking. Restarts on the bottom were definitely not my strong suit. I feel like it probably is easier to wheelie on the bottom, I would say. But overall, that no matter where I put that thing, it had drive. Um, but I felt way more comfortable on the top than the bottom for sure.
And I think,
Gotcha. Yeah,
I
I
think,
know that's
oh, good.
definitely. Well, I was gonna say it's one of my like the worst things I hate in the Outlaw car is like when you get off the bottom and you have grip on the right rear and it just wheelies off to the right. That your heart stops every single time.
That did happen once in practice. It went straight toward the wall, and I thought we were going to be loading it up on a flatbed on practice night. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's sketchy. But um, as long as you know how to get it back down, then that's all that really matters.
Right.
Yeah, those moments are definitely watching are insane. I mean, I I knew you were in control out there, but just in general, uh, you know, that is the moment where things just get a little chaotic. And I think it was good. I think no matter what, the weekend was good because you got the chance to do those practice laps to kind of lead into Saturday. We ended Friday on possibly the best note possible. You got to do all the sessions, and we ended the last session once it finally got really slick. And from my position, I didn't want to make any adjustments to the race car because I was worried that if I started changing too many things, it would just with Kyler not getting to run karts much, I didn't want him to feel a bunch of different things. I wanted him to feel the same thing every time he came on the track, and I was hoping that that would kind of, you could say, build confidence with him. And Shaw, you can maybe give some input on this, but like, I was stoked after our last practice session because it was the best you had looked. And I rolled out of the building on my bike and I rolled up to Shaw, and we just had like this moment where it was like, man, that was what we were looking for. Can you kind of elaborate on that, and especially like that feeling? I think as most racers, that's what you're looking for, is that feeling when you just know you have the speed, because sometimes before that it can be a little iffy. And I mean, yes, you feel fast, but you're not just 100% where you need to be.
Yeah, and I believe you did include that clip in the practice day videos. So for anybody that is listening to this and didn't see that, that's what we're referencing. Um, yeah, I pulled off the track and I just knew we were so fast, and you did too. It was like one of those things where we both looked at each other. We both knew that car was flying, and that was as high as my confidence could have been. And honestly, I did need that going into Saturday. I was really glad we went out for that last session because, I mean, I felt good in all the other sessions, but that last one was where I was like, okay, we're making something happen. And I was still a little uneasy about some things. We talked about my restarts, my ability to drive near other cars. But as far as turning laps, that last session gave me the highest confidence I possibly could have had. And I feel like that really carried over to Saturday and made a difference in my performance.
So going into Saturday now, let's talk about just, I mean, pretty much getting it started. Originally, the game plan was for just Kyler to race. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of guys tried to convince me to run the non-wing portion, which we ended up doing. So that threw a little bit of a wrench into things. And then also I mentioned we had a camera person there following us around. So that added to the experience. We just had kind of a lot going on, very busy in our pit, but got the night started. You pulled mid-pack, right? Mid-pack for qualifying?
Yeah, I think I drew a 45, so that was the 14th car out.
14th car out. I think we had almost like 23 or 24 open. So a good size field, good competition. It was pretty clear, who the 5 or 6 guys that were going to be the people to beat and who would probably, run up front in the A main event. So started off with qualifying and kind of getting into those heat races. Can you just like walk us through what those laps look like? As I got to watch right there from the grandstands, and they even kind of were videoing my reaction. But qualifying laps, and then the oh so important heat races where you literally, I mean, you have to try and move forward because one heat race you start up front, and the next one you're going to be inverted. You have to start in the back, so you got to maintain in one of your heats, and you got to pretty much pass as many cars as possible in the other set.
Exactly. Qualifying, the track was definitely a little different than I expected, but it really didn't affect us much when six quick there. And honestly, I made a couple mistakes that could have probably bettered my result there. So I think I ran an 8.1 and quick time was a 7.9. So I mean, we're talking the littlest twitch on a time like that. But overall, I was happy with six quick. That was definitely better than I thought we did there. And then yeah, that's the interesting thing about Roseburg with the double set of heats. Normally in a sprint car, I qualified sixth, which is a pretty good guarantee to make the feature and start up front. But at Roseburg, you have to be able to qualify and run your 2 heats good. So, the track was a little more juiced up in the first heat, and I was wheeling everywhere and finished second to Hubert there. And that still wasn't good enough, to get us in the feature because of the second set. And then that's kind of where everything went downhill there in that second heat race.
Something we've been watching at Roseburg, I know, is the tire rule, and I think it was open tire. Did you notice anything different between the open tire rule and then before last weekend with the 50 tire rule? Did you notice anything different with the track being better?
That's a great question, actually. Lot of difference. I tested on Sunday when it was rubber down, really, or abrasive, so there was quite a bit of grip in the McMaster machine, and they originally had air pressures kind of low, so I was a little tight, but then they added air pressure to what they said what they would have ran during the race, and I felt like I was on ice, which is what Tanner describes a lot when he's describing the 50. And I mean, the practice day when we were running 11s and 33s and stuff, like there's so much grip and drive with those things. It's quite unreal. And honestly, I wasn't really ready for it, but I was able to adapt to it. But yes, there is I did notice a huge difference between the change of tire.
Gotcha.
But I think the main thing, yeah, I mean, obviously Shaw kind of got to run the 50 a little bit before I got to run the 11, and from watching, to me, I couldn't believe how much track or how much grip the track had, and that's one thing that is really weird about that place. Like the dirt is different. Like when I first walked out, when we got there on Saturday, and they were prepping, they have like a really weird prepping procedure. Like they kind of till up the track after practice, but not really. Like they just give it a good coat of water, and then they also like to really throw this loose dust on top of it. I don't know what. I'm not a dirt guy, so I'm not 100% sure, but they said, hey, it's going to be close to the track record or the 7-second bracket, which, as Shaw mentioned, it was. But it never really slowed down. It just kept getting better. It was really slimy to start, and then by the time the heat races rolled in, The first heat, it still was kind of greasy in certain spots, and everyone, not just Shaw, but everyone's front ends were flying all over the place because there's just so much grip, especially with those soft tires, kind of on the rear. But it just kind of slowly started to widen out, and then as we got into the A main event, it had a couple of different grooves, but quickly kind of still, even though it was a different tire roll, different everything, still kind of migrated to the bottom. Moving into the A main event, though, we weren't sure that you were going to be in the A after your second heat race, but they ended up scoring you fifth, correct?
I believe so. I honestly thought I was sixth, and then when I ended up in the A, it was kind of a shocker. So I believe somebody got DQ'd or something. But yes, they did score me fifth in that heat race.
Yeah, there was
Hey, it's always like they say, it pays off better to be lucky than good, you know?
Oh, 100%.
absolutely. It was dude, I cannot even tell you how much chaos, not only in our heat race, but all the heats. A lot of shakeups, a lot of mechanical failures from people that maybe ran good in one set and then the other had issues, and then that really stacked up the B main events, and then we were able to sneak in the show. At this point in the night, I was just debating which direction to go. The racetrack had a lot of grip. It did start to lose it a little, but we walked it and it still was like this like hard, but there was grip. And then certain spots were mushy. So it had not a little bit of everything, but it was just starting to go from the direction to where it was getting ready to slow down. So we ended up making some changes. We went to a little bit of a harder tire compound on the right rear, a little bit harder on the left rear as well, but still pretty soft. So the race car, my thought was hopefully if we got on a long green flag run, it would get better for Shaw, but also by going to a harder tire compound, it should have left him loose because we still had plenty of stagger. And until that tire heated up, he wouldn't start to get tighter. You rolled off from ninth. What did the first laps look like for you? What were you feeling in the car? And in literally, I always like to call him the blender. Like that's the blender in the back.
Yeah, you're certainly right there. Uh, Honestly, I was kind of being a wimp there in the beginning. If you watch the GoPro, the first couple corners, I was putting around just because honestly, I mean, I've watched so many races at Roseburg, and usually there's a wreck in the first corner or at least the first lap. So I was kind of riding around just waiting to see if anyone was going to wreck, and then next thing you know, we kind of got spread out there, and next thing you know, I'm way behind the guy in front of me. So I was kind of riding around just waiting for some wrecks, and it never happened. I think we got like a 10-lap green run there, and the car did start to come to me a little bit. And in the beginning, I was a little on the loose side, like you said I would be, and um, yeah, I was just kind of riding around at the back, really.
So then here comes the moment where everyone saw in the video. And I mean, we gotta like, because we kind of did a play by play that's gonna come out in the video separately when we kind of talk about all the damage and stuff where we're repairing the car. But like, take me through second by second when the incident happens on the backstretch. Because surprisingly, as you mentioned, we had no yellows, which is totally unusual for Roseburg. Usually, I think the week before we had like 10 yellows in the A main event, which is way too many. But this week we got off to a green flag run. Then there's one car that spins out, and then that causes what I like to call was a plane crash on the back straightaway. It literally looked like a plane crash. What did that like 50 feet look like from you when all of a sudden cars start scattering and all of a sudden you're about head on with Johnny Burke, who we also just had on the show?
That I mean, you're exactly right. It was a plane crash. A million thoughts went through my head there. I tried to explain them all as best as I could in the reaction video, but really, I just couldn't get it all out. I mean, I came off a two, and Hubert, the 13E, and another car were three wide, so I was watching them very carefully because, three wide at Roseburg is sketchy. So if there was going to be a wreck, I kind of thought it was going to be right there. And Hubert kind of moved up a little bit on the 13, I believe, and the 13 checked up, which I thought nothing of. Um, and then he moved down the track a little bit, so I darted to the outside to go around him. I'm going to shoot the gap and try and pass this guy. And I ended up hitting his right rear, and it turned the wheels left. Luckily, he had his wheels locked up. Otherwise, I would have sailed it out of the park most likely. Because instead of hopping his right rear, since his wheel wasn't moving, it ended up just turning the wheels left. And then it shot me sideways a little bit. And honestly, that contact could have saved me as well because since it did cock me sideways, I hit Johnny at a weird angle that didn't really affect us both. But then the car behind me bulldozed me, which he really probably didn't have anything that he could do either. But that was the majority of the impact there. So, and I honestly didn't know that there were 6 other cars in the wreck until I watched the video after. Like, I was kind of dazed and confused, honestly, a little bit when I got out of the car, kind of focused on my foot, and then I watched the video and there's a car upside down. There's like 3 cars in the Lego wall, so that was definitely a plane crash on the backstretch.
When you talk about that second car coming in, that's the part that I was like, that first part was hard, but you kind of took all that in the bumper and, the hood and radiator. But that second part is actually sketchy because I was like, did he make contact with your actual elbow? But he ended up not, which was, for the best there. But you're right. That was definitely one of the hardest hits I've ever seen.
Which I commend the manufacturers of go-karts or outlaw carts, because the fact that he did come that close to my elbow but didn't hit it, like, it is impressive how close of calls there are in outlaw carts, but you never
And
actually
how,
get hit.
right.
But the 37 did hit me in the left rear pretty hard, but that actually wasn't the damage that ended my race. It was the angle that Johnny hit the radiator, and I mean, the radiator was leaking. There was no way we could have kept running without blowing that engine up, and that engine is obviously the most important part on that car. So it was just smarter to call it quits after that one.
Yeah, and I at first I didn't realize you were even hurting a little bit. Like I was kind of joking with when we were talking afterwards. Like I ran up and I was immediately looking at the car because I was in the grandstands on the front stretch. I take off running to the hot pit cuz my first instinct is like, all right, Shaw's in the wreck, but I want to make sure if he can get back out there, we want to do that. So I purposely kept a 9/16 in my pocket cuz what I can use a 9/16 for is if either the left or right front knuckle gets rolled, then I can, straighten that back up. Other than that, it's not used for many other things, but that's a quick fix that can help the car drive better if he was in an incident. So my first thought is, he goes behind the pole. He doesn't come out from behind the pole. And I start running over to the hot pit and run over there. His car's kind of just starting to come off the track, run up to it, and all of a sudden I didn't even see where he was at. He was like walking away, and all of a sudden Carly's like, "Hey, you might want to check on Kyler." And sure enough, I walk over and, he was like, he said he was good, but, his leg was hurting. So we got him back to the trailer, sat down, but surprisingly, it actually didn't do as much damage as it looked. Once we tore it all apart, we had one kingpin that was bent, busted the radiator, little bit of top wing damage, but definitely fixable. The hood is in about 15 different pieces. Might try to duct tape that together, and then the left side Nerf bar and a little bit of cage damage. But other than that, Kyler, we were all taking it apart on Sunday, got it all apart, and we should have it fixed up here soon.
Well, and honestly, if it wasn't for that radiator damage, I probably would have continued on. I don't know if it got left in there long enough, but when I ended up parking on the backstretch, I pulled the clutch in and refired it, but then I saw the red light was on and I was like, okay, if I move, they're just going to yell at me on the receiver probably. So I just kind of sat there and waited for them to clean up the wreckage, and then I felt hot water on my feet, and I looked down and I mean, I couldn't see that one GoPro angle where the radiator was spewing water out the front, but I was kind of just sitting there, and I looked down and the radiator's dripping, and I was like, oh no, that's not good. My foot hurt, but obviously I'm a racer. I'm not going to let that stop me unless my foot was broken in half or something. So I was ready to keep ripping, but once I saw the radiator was done, there's nothing really we could do about that. It was smarter to just call it quits. But it was my brake foot that actually got hurt, so we really didn't need that anyway.
The other cool thing, as like Kyler and I were talking, and even with some of the other people, and like why racing in general is such a cool sport, is there was probably 3 or 4 guys all like walking over to the hot pit to come and back us up and help us if need be, like whatever that was. Because like I said, initially the main thing that gets hit in outlaw carts is the front end gets folded, and so me and Carly run over, and we probably could have been more than enough capable of fixing it. But like I said, there was 3 or 4 guys that were just already waiting. And then, we take the right hand out the building. So obviously, we're done. But it's just so cool. That's how, sprint car racing is, dirt racing in general. There's so many guys that are ready to jump in and lend a hand when you need. So cool to see that side of the sport. To kind of move on to wrap up just the weekend, I'd like to say cars are replaceable, drivers are not, and that was a good that's a good saying for our weekend. One of the last questions I have for you, Kyler, is because you said at the beginning you kind of got hooked back into it. You're a racer, no matter, or when you're a racer at heart and that's what you do for so long, even when you go and do something else, I feel like it's so tough, when you do get to run, to not just want to keep racing. So maybe what is possibly a future of running some more kart races, maybe at Roseburg in the winter time, or just having your own go-kart, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years to play around with here and there.
I wouldn't rule out anything, to be honest. The video stuff kind of sidelines me, but if there's a video guy that is perfectly capable of doing as good as I do on the camera, then I would say you would see me on the track maybe almost every week. If funds are there, I would like to buy my own Outlaw cart and take it up to Roseburg a couple times, and honestly, maybe even Red Bluff someday. So I wouldn't completely rule out me buying my own operation, or if somebody offered me a ride, I certainly couldn't decline unless I was committed to something video wise. But I'm a racer at heart. I always do want to race, and honestly, as you saw, I can wheel a car sometimes. So um, I think it would be a waste of some skill if I didn't run something at some point.
If I had vote in the I want to see Shaw at West Coast Nationals 2022. That's my vote, though.
I
Yeah,
agree with that, but it is a tough one because that is obviously one of the bigger races out there. So if I did hire a video guy and they didn't perform quite how I needed them to, I have customers that are watching that I have to prioritize over my racing. So, but I would definitely love to race nationals. I think that'd be a blast.
Right, I agree.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it doesn't get much better. And honestly, the only other thing I really have to add to this was just like, as far as uh what it felt like to, as I said, to watch a go-kart that you own go around the racetrack. It's different, and it was really exciting. I think there was a lot of fun moments, and getting to see Shaw progress throughout the weekend, get more confident, get to kind of talk with other drivers, things that people have always, I guess, that you see other drivers do, but you just don't even notice. But all the little things, I felt like Kyler got more and more confident every time he hit the track. I thought a big moment was you beat Hubert on the restart in one of the heat races and did jump out front. He did regain the lead, but like, it's not easy to do little things like that we kind of get used to. It's all about winning. It's all about winning. And put a guy like you in that only gets to run a couple times a year, and has some really impressive speed. So I feel like maybe some of the Roseburg people are probably happy that you're not coming back, because it's one less guy that they got to worry about. One thing that was different about this last weekend that I thought added to the content and definitely made it a lot more fun to edit, but I mentioned we had a cameraman following us around, and I think that was a different experience than kind of what we've been used to with the vlogs. Like usually, like if it's just me at the races by myself, like I kind of do like the holding the camera, get all the shots I can. Throughout the summer in 2021, Bennett was there a lot, so he got a bunch of shots. We were filming many videos every time we were at the track. That was super cool. That added like a ton of value and a different perspective, because like track shots, drone footage, like all sorts of cool things that is difficult for me to get on my own. But this last Saturday, we had a specific person there just filming all of our interactions. And Kyler, do you want to maybe mention like what that was like for you? Because literally, I mean, every single time you were in and out of the car, there was a camera in your face. And to shout out our cameraman, it was Jeremiah, super cool kid, young kid, ambitious, wanted to help out, and just a fan of us. And we're hoping to have him, help us more in the future, as he did a phenomenal job putting it all together.
Yeah, Jeremiah did a great job, and I honestly, rewatching the video, I really like how it flowed. It really showed the connection we had as a driver and car owner. We were able to bounce ideas off each other and stuff, and it really showed the chemistry we had as a team. And not, not trying to say that anything is scripted or anything, but it was more of a natural conversation we were having. I didn't even know I was being filmed half the time when we were in the trailer just talking about what happened out on the track. So I think that gave drivers an unfiltered look, or viewers an unfiltered look at the discussions we had, and I really liked how everything flowed.
Well, and I kind of felt like how I like to describe it is like if you were just a fly on the wall or, a fly outside, like what it would be like just to be there, or a person standing there. Like everything we said was what we would say in that situation. And I think that was a different view that, I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out to me or comment on this podcast or this video, what your specific thoughts are. But I thought that was something I want to add in more, because I think it just gives even more real look of what it is like when we're racing, the real moments, the discussions, and just the being straight up. Like Kyler, many times it wasn't all just like picture perfect stuff. Like there was times when we had to make the race car better, or when he said he made mistakes, or when I've said, hey, like man, maybe we could have done this or done that. And even right after the wreck, like he was, I think Jeremiah was filming, and I realized how I looked after which it was more just, I think, the disappointment all around of what happened. But like I was looking at the car, and I feel like just my face, that was something that I wouldn't have got in the past. So I really enjoyed that unique look. And then obviously getting to edit it back, it was all stuff that I hadn't seen before, because I was just there in front of the camera. I wasn't the one recording it. So it added a lot of fun in many different areas. And we're hoping to bring Jeremiah back for, maybe a good amount of filming this year, if his schedule allows. But other than that, as I said in the video, thank you for driving my car. Bennett, was there anything else you wanted to add in the show today?
Not too much, other than, the clash happened this weekend, and based on what I saw on social media, a good amount of people, I think it was for the better. A lot of people liked it. Personally, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And I know some people did not, but that was the first chance to look at the next gen car at NASCAR. And I'm actually looking forward to the season. I think it's going to bring back a lot of good competition. But on the dirt side of things, we got some bad luck striking down in Florida.
Oh yeah, tons of rain down there. I would agree with you though, on the clash. Not gonna lie, I was possibly maybe one of the haters at first, but
Yeah.
I think they're onto something. I thought it was unique, it was different, it was cool, and I think maybe if they could do that race, but maybe like have it at a different spot maybe every season, or maybe every 2 seasons. I don't know what it looks like, but I think with their new package and the idea of kind of a more touring idea with it, like going to a new place to attract fans for, the upcoming season, I think that could be something very valuable in bringing NASCAR to where it needs to be, which is just a more relatable spot.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think, one thing I'll always stand by is I hate the number placement. It's stupid. It looks ugly, but I think the rest of the car is pretty cool.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more there. That kind of, though, is going to wrap up episode number 32 here. We just wanted a chance to talk about some of the inside moments, talk about the plane crash that occurred at the Roseburg Indoor on lap number 10 of this weekend's race, talk about Kyler's perspective in all that. And thank you guys for joining me, Bennett and Kyler, today. We will be back next Wednesday with episode 33 of Off the Track. We have a couple of really, really neat interviews that we already shot that, man, I cannot wait to be released.
Same. That's so cool. It's a whole new aspect of racing that I don't think, me and you know too much about, but learning about, some of the stuff that we did get to learn about, and then some of our best friends' actual career that we didn't even know about. It's really cool to hear their views and their stories on the sport that we all love, and that's racing.
2 unique episodes drop in the next 2 weeks on Off the Track. As usual, thank you guys so much. You can listen on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen to the show. And we will see you as that wraps up episode 32. And we will see you again next Wednesday on Off the Track. Thank you guys.
Thank you. And also quick mention, let us know how this sounds, how you guys like it. I think me and Tanner both like hearing feedback, but like you said, thanks for watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.